Hey, it's John Carlos here with another edition of Movies Worth Talking About with
Eddie!
Eddie. Here to talk about Tourist Trap.
Yeah.
Tourist Trap.
Tourist trap.
Fucking movie.
Get into
Let,
it.
let
What's
me.
happening?
Well, okay, I only saw this movie for the first time
Yeah.
last year. Found it on
Same.
Tubi in 2020, the year that I stayed home and watched a million horror movies on Tubi. And I remember one of the many horror Instagram accounts that I follow was like Tourist Trap, and I'm like, I've heard that title my whole life. Let's check out Tourist Trap. Let's see what the deal is.
Yeah.
The thing about horror is I like a lot of it, but not a lot of it actually scares me. I just enjoy what I'm in, ooh. But this, well, I wouldn't say like fucked me up, but like it works. It really fucking works on me. You know, as you're laughing, it's rare that something works on me. And I will say this, I feel like if you're, because I'm 40, I feel like if you're of a younger generation, or even my same generation, but like your idea of horror is like, spooky, well-produced shit. Like you would watch this and go, this is fucking cheesy, this is stupid. Why are you scared? I don't like dolls. I don't like marionettes. I don't like ventriloquist dummies. And even though I've never really had a problem with mannequins before, this movie still falls into that category of like plastic puppeteered like humanoid things. They look like people, but their skin is hard. And they're moving and they shouldn't fucking be moving. And there's more reasons why this movie bothers me, which we'll get to later. But
okay.
But fuck, man. I saw it, I was bothered by it, and I immediately went, well, I need to own it because it actually works.
Gotcha.
What about you?
Well, same as you, saw it for the first time. I checked the date, and I think it was in November off of your tip, actually. I had never heard about it before, though. Yeah, I checked it out, and I remember the opening sequence, and I was laughing so hard because all I could think was, this is so avoidable with this guy.
Well, like, why doesn't he just jump out the fucking window?
Well, no, not even that. Like, why did he go in that room in the first place? Like, if all I hear is, I don't even remember the noise. What was it? Or whatever noise she's making in that room. It's like, I'm not putting my head through that door if that's all I'm hearing. I'm like, hello. If I'm in the common area, like the public access to the public area, and I'm here like, oh, I don't know what that means. I ain't going and sticking my head and going, hello, hey, excuse me. And then going over and trying to, I mean, she's clearly a mannequin. And then, okay, the other thing, the second, let's get into it. When they all start coming out, with the with the hyena laugh from Jungle Cruise at Disneyland, that scares you?
None of that should be happening, Eddie.
It is like literally the hyena laugh from It's a Small World also.
It's funny. It's funny that you're mentioning how it's sourced, because they talked about how like they in the making of, or the commentary, one of the two, they were at the post-production facility that I think was like MGM based, and they had access to like the entire MGM catalog of sound effects, and they're just like listing off all these things that have been used in like way more famous other movies and stuff. And I wouldn't surprise me if hyena laugh is one of them.
Well, let me cross that off my list. It's not a long list, but it's longer than I thought I was going to have.
Okay, I could say this for about everything in the whole movie. Remember how we talked about Texas Chainsaw and that bothers you, and my thing with Texas Chainsaw is when I watch it, I'm not really bothered, but when I stop to think about if I was in that scenario, Texas Chainsaw would bother me. But when I watch it, I'm kind of removed for some reason. With this movie, I'm not. I'm not removed. I'm there. And you know what? If I was in a fucking room and this goddamn smiling mannequin jumped out and started giggling while the windows close, you know, and there's making voices and these things can't make noises, and something's pulling on my arm and won't let me go, like, fuck all that shit.
This is so
Fuck it.
awesome.
Fuck mannequins in general.
I
Well,
predict
fuck that,
25% of this pod is going to just be me laughing at you.
Probably. But you know what?
And I apologize. I apologize in advance because
it's okay. And you know why it's okay? I feel like you earned it.
Yeah, right? Oh my God. Go in the back catalog, children. Like, you'll see. I've done this.
Yeah, both on the podcast and just in life.
In life, yes.
I am always just Hannibal poking you. Such a dick.
Yeah,
so
just
whatever.
Post-pod discussions sometimes. Yeah. But
yeah. That's fine.
It never stops. It never stops.
Hey,
children.
I'm the idiot who bought the movie and watched it 3 times in the last week.
You're all like, hey, how about Tourist Trap? I'm like, okay, sure.
Well,
and
I don't know when, you know, like, you know, my mother is not a horror movie fan, and she'll always be like, but why are you watching that? I'm like, because it's a different feeling than like, it's kind of fun to be scared sometimes, and it's rare to find something that actually scares me. You know,
absolutely.
And also that bigger thing of we all have, as the idea of a human construct, we all have the potential for darkness within us, and if we, this is a safe way to let it out. And
absolutely,
you know, I'm more concerned if you don't watch horror movies. What's going on?
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, what's going on?
Because one day you're gonna snap, and I'm like, you should have watched more horror movies.
Because you know what, I've said before about sexuality that I never want to be the gay guy who leans into the straight guy, or you know, the assumed straight guy, and just kind of like, well, maybe you just haven't been with the right guy. Never wanted to do that in my entire career as a homosexual, even closeted. But as a horror fan, if I hear somebody tell me, you know, like, I just don't watch horror films, there's something in me. I would never tell them that because I don't want them to put up their guard. But in my head, I'm just like, maybe you just haven't seen the right horror film. Like, we need to find your horror film, and that's when the questions start, you know.
Well, it's my favorite thing about the genre is that horror is a multitude of subgenres.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You know, if your only idea is, well, I don't like that Saw stuff and that torture porn. It's like, well, let's go find you like some Spanish ghost dramas. Like, you might really like The Orphanage, you know, or something. Devil's Backbone. That's like, there are movies that, you know, go see any of the A24 movies that have come out in the last 5 years.
Yeah, no, there's a
way.
If
you don't like slashers, or if you don't like, you know,
one thing that I hear a lot is just like, I prefer like psychological terror kind of stuff, and it's like, all right, then we'll watch that. I'm totally down. We won't do slasher then, you know. Like, we'll do something, or maybe I'll find the right slasher, you know, like, it's fun, it's experimenting. But anyway,
and I feel like this movie isn't many people, but this isn't like a dig at the movie, but it's a very specific kind of flavor that I could see a lot of people being like, nah.
It
not
is
like it's
totally
bad,
like,
but it's not.
Yeah, it's in on the joke. It is a total horror fans horror movie, and we'll get to more reasons why, because there are things in the composition of it that feel familiar.
Yes.
But that
and tonally feel very familiar. I'm glad you brought up the opening sequence.
Yeah,
because I mean, so much of what I'm probably saying this statement a lot, but the first time I watched it, I also didn't know anything about what this fucking movie was about. Didn't know if it was ghosts or zombies or a slasher or anything. So you're following this guy, Woody. He wants to put air in his tire. And by the way, if I need to put air in a tire and I go to a gas station and no one's around, and this needs to fucking happen, if I hear noise in a door, I will go in there, or at least be like, hello. Because I need fucking help, and no one's in this giant fucking office in the front. You know.
All right.
I get it. I'm just saying, I get it. Anyway, I will say this. And everyone who's watching, I presume, you've seen this movie already.
Yeah,
okay, spoiler alert
folks.
for the whole thing. But I mean, not knowing anything, and you walk in and like a mannequin pops up, and then another mannequin, and then like a creepy like face mannequin, and all of a sudden, that's not only is that weird, but now like telekinetically or through ghosts or I don't know what yet at this point, things are flying at him, and all I could think was, what the fuck is going on right now? I don't know. How refreshing, but also like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
This isn't a girl and she gets stabbed by somebody. This isn't familiar tropes. This isn't a haunting either. Like, you know, what the fuck is this? What a great experience, though. Nothing can replicate this movie for the first time for me.
No, but actually, it kind of can, because I didn't remember certain things. Things resonated with me, like the opening sequence, certainly. But like the reveals and stuff. Like the only part of the reveal that I remember is the big part, you know, like the identity part of the reveal. But the rest of it, like I was just kind of like, oh yeah, there's like a telekinetic angle. Oh, I forgot about that this time. So watching it this time around was kind of refreshing, because that got to happen to me all over again. Because even while the things were flying off I was just thinking, well, somebody's obviously fucking with you. Maybe there's like a magnet on the other side of that door and everything has like a bit of metal in it. And it's all just, you know, once they play with the reverb or whatever, like the intensity of like the magnet, maybe I've seen in like sci-fi movies where you can like make something more magnetic so it'll draw things to it. And maybe that's what's going on. I'm not scared. Also because, okay, fucking mannequins are popping out of like closets and whatever. And all I can think is, it's a fucking mannequin. Knock it down. Like, just because the thing came out of the closet, and I'm like, well, that might not even be a closet. It could be just like a room with like a false backing. Like, knock it down, go in there, beat the thing, try to break the window. I mean, he wasn't thinking like a survivor, a proactive enough survivor to me. I thought the scare worked on him a little too well. I mean, I understand it being thrown off, but I don't understand the kind of, he's just kind of,
because I can justify, like, again, I've said this we may have said this in a podcast. I know I've said it in life. When you get to be the logic police observer, going, why don't they just do this? It's like, well, in the heat of the moment, they don't get to have the calm logic that you have sitting on a couch. They are having a more narrow view, and adrenaline is pumping, and at least he tries to go out the front, the door. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then he immediately gets locked into the door. So I don't feel like he's just some dummy. Like, at least he goes for the door. I'll give him that. That's all I'll say. Because once his arm is stuck, you know, then what can you do?
I just wrote, someone's trying to scare me. So what? And I guess the arms to the door thing, I mean, it's kind of freaky, but why wouldn't you like try and, I mean, he didn't even like try to look to see like what's going on.
No, because he can't pull his way out to look.
But I think it's also the thing of just like, well, I don't know what he's feeling. Like, does he feel a force? And because now it's probably just telekinesis doing it, like maybe he doesn't feel anything, or does he feel like kind of like ghostly arms? Like, you know,
I feel like Mr. Slauson is on the other side holding his arm.
Oh, you think he's literally pulling him through? All right.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then just then find. I always see. I've seen too many horror movies. I'm like, find the soft spot. Like, look for the vulnerable piece. Pinch the shit out of it. If you have long nails, try to poke at it. Punch if you can. You go nuts. You know, wriggle. If you really. This is so victim shamey, but if you really want your arm out of that hole, you'll find a way to get it out. That's just the horror fan talking in me within a horror movie, not.
Next thing you're going to tell me, Eddie, is that, you know, with that little handkerchief and his shirt open, he was just asking for it.
Can I tell you though, before all this, there's that. What's the name of the other guy? Because the guy who this is all happening to that we've been discussing is Jerry. The other guy is Woody.
No. Woody is what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. Jerry's Woody is. I never got it. They were just shouting names, and I'm like, which guy's which? It doesn't matter, obviously, to me. But okay, so Which one is the one who's not this happening to?
Jerry.
Jerry is
Jerry's
the guy.
the driver of the car who. Like,
okay, cool.
His car breaks down.
So Jerry is there, and he's the one who has the line, right, where he's like looking at the flat tire, and he just says, I won't nail the delivery. Maybe you can do better than I can, but it's just like, look at the size of that hole, something like that. In the tire. And I think that's the first line of dialogue in the movie, so it's just like, nice. But I do have to say one thing that I forgot again. It was wonderful to experience it for the first time again. Was just like the music, the little madcap into like spiraling sinister feel. You know, I totally am on board with it because it's memorable. Even though I didn't remember it when it happened, I was like, oh yeah, this music's fucked up.
Yeah. Well, the music. I forget. The making of that's on the Blu-ray is nice because he talks about like the surprising pedigree that some of the people that he got to work on this, and the guy who did the music has done some really good stuff. They use it for the opening credits, but it's way creepier in what I call the little kind of dinner scene.
Yeah.
Way creepier there. But there's some other moody music that really works. But yeah, that super playful opening credit music. The way people try to use like circus music to make things creepy, and I'm like, this is not fucking creepy. That's what they're going for. Is like it's like super whimsical and playful, and it's fucking not.
Yeah.
When I'm watching it, Jesus.
Totally. To close the book on that opening sequence, though, I just want to say one thing that I did appreciate that also relates to sound. I was just kind of like, oh, look at you, Hitchcock. It was hearing the blood dripping before you know what it is. I fucking love that.
Me too.
Yeah. And then it got revealed, and you're like, oh, it's a pipe that went into him. Yeah. And the blood is dripping from the pipe, and it's just dripping, hitting the floor, and that's what we're hearing. Awesome. And again, I was so detached from it. I wasn't scared, but I was just like, nice.
See, I had my experience was I remember watching it for the first time, and then again the second time because it had been a while. But because I could see that it's a pipe, and it flies into him, and the second it flies into him, I'm like, you know, what'd be dope is like we hear the blood, like, or if we see the blood dripping out. And right when I thought that, they start doing it, and I'm like, bravo.
You love it when people read your mind. Yeah.
Give me what I want.
How
loosely? No, go ahead. How?
I just want to ask you a question because I know that you're creeped out by this movie. How, in the range of things that scare you, like where does like the muttering of Slauson, like in character, you know what I mean? Like when he's his brother with the mask on, how much does that creep you out?
It creeps me out.
Okay.
I don't know to what scale, but it's definitely one of my notes.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious. Go on. You were going to say?
No, I was just about to say, just kind of a loose way. One of the things that really worked for me in general was there's a lot of little things that made me think of Texas Chainsaw in this. Just the fact that it's coming out a year after. But also like the composition of things, the lighting, the grain of the film. And I realized how much I respond to the 70s low budget, not like trash, but just low budget, usually on 16 millimeter. Texas Chainsaw, Hills Have Eyes, Tourist Trap, Glass House on the left, sort of. There's a lack of studio polish that tends to work for me for these kind of 70s horror movies, and I'm watching this, and it part of it really puts me, I don't want to say this movie makes me like it feels realistic or anything, but like Texas Chainsaw, I feel grounded in this. And then the sets and the way they're decorated don't feel artificial, they feel true to what I'm looking at. And then it turns out that the director, like Tobe Hooper's from Austin, a lot of the crew of when he was at Texas U were the same crew on Texas Chainsaw. Bob Burns, who was the production designer of Texas Chainsaw, is the production designer for this. which makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah.
And when you learn about how like he was out digging for all sorts of trash and bones for Texas Chainsaw, and he was out like digging for mannequin parts and decorating. It's like I could see. So there's the things that work for me in Texas Chainsaw are also the things that work for me in this, from just the film production standpoint. So I just think that's worth honoring because it really works for me in this.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I definitely, Texas Chainsaw was kind of all over this movie for me too. Like right from the get-go, I actually thought about a friend of mine who, when I first showed him Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, he actually bought it. He did a blind buy, and he was so disappointed in it because he claimed that the characters were stupid and unimaginative. And he just felt like the whole movie didn't need to happen, and the only reason it did is because all those kids were so fucking stupid. And I'm like, all right, well, I can understand having a movie if that's how you feel about it. Obviously that's not how I feel about it, but with this one, even though I'm like, why is the guy scared and whatever, like, I mean, I still do have criticisms for the characters, but the fact that it's, again, that Hansel and Gretel kind of thing, you know, like that, or, you know, like the disappearing into this kind of like middle of nowhere environment that just kind of like swallows you up, and what's left at the end, which, okay, we'll get there, but I love how boldly thematic it is, particularly in its portrayal of the girls. The guys are kind of like, just, they could be anybody, and that's fine. But I like the fact that like the girls, it's I'm struggling with names because I only remember Molly, Becky, and who? Oh,
Becky and Eileen.
So Becky and Eileen are running around in their like little jean shorts, and they're wearing like, you know, a swimsuit or like a halter top or something like that. And then you see sweet Molly
in her fucking hat.
And in her, like, I wrote, what did I write down? Her sensible white linen little girl from the Victorian era dress, and yeah, and her sun hat.
Did she have pigtails too? Or
I don't remember that, but maybe that's why I got the little girl thing, because the dress later is definitely a little girl.
See, you said Victorian era. I thought fucking Pollyanna.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's enough of a crossover there. Sure, why not? I just imagine it's the kind of dress you'd see a little girl running around on her, you know, her spring or summer holiday, and in one of those kinds of times.
Yeah, I definitely feel it feels like a Pollyanna running through the field, springtime kind of outfit.
Yeah, totally.
It's when that movie starts, and I see this cast of people. I don't peg Molly as the lead / final girl.
Oh, I totally did.
I didn't. But I really like that that's where it goes.
Yeah.
I always presumed it was going to be Eileen or Becky, and that Molly was a sort of more eccentric one.
Too innocent.
Yeah. She's not Laurie Strode enough. She's not vanilla enough compared to like Laurie's more eccentric friends. But I really actually kind of like where it ends up going, and I really buy it.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, I wouldn't go as far as say there's a theme to this movie that I'm going to address, but it almost feels like you could almost get there.
Yeah.
Where do I start with this? When I meet strangers in this situation, like let's say we pull over to the gas station or somewhere and you're on a road trip, right? And the stranger who works at the gas station is very talkative. Let's say we are stuck for a few minutes, like they are in this movie when they actually go into Slosson's little tourist trap. If they start opening up to me about their fucking dead wife and stuff, I'm just like, I'm not going to be rude, and I'm not quite stranger danger, but it's like, bro, I don't fucking know you. So like, I don't want to TMI. I don't care that much. I'm going to be polite, but like, I don't need the fucking life story from somebody I just met. And I will be kind of polite and distant about it. Whereas I know someone in my life who would instantly, like, she would like, and it's also a girl, she would like lean in, she would love to talk to this old man and listen to about like his dead wife, and like, and God bless her that that's how she would respond to things like that. That's not me. So when I see Molly in this movie, I'm like, I know who you are. So I believe who you are. But I couldn't help thinking about how like the other two girls don't lean in with an ear the way she does.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
She is the only person, including Jerry, who like, you know, really want to like listen to this guy and what he has to say and engage. And sure enough, of our 5 people, she's the one that like he chooses, you know,
Yeah.
to set his sights on, as it were. Not to kill, but like, as you find out, because his wife is dead, but you remind me of my wife. And the thing that I find interesting is that even at one point, it's like, you're special. I can't let you go. You gotta stay because you're special. You remind me of my wife. I have to wonder because the resemblance isn't there. We see in photos and of the mannequin in there that it's brunette, and here's this blonde. So when you say you remind me of my wife, I wonder one of 2 things. One, is it her personality? Which seems like the obvious answer. Like who you are reminds me of my wife. But I also can't help but wonder, and I don't think this is such a, to me, a very more 21st century thing, this idea that women have been dealing with for decades that I've only been aware of in the last like 10, 20 years, this plight of like the friend zoning, of the idea of like women showing men attention and men reading way too much into it, that if a girl's talking to me, then she must like me, you know. Just a few days ago, my friend posted like a tweet. She was quoting someone, I had to pull it up. The tweet said, "I'm always a little mean to men because if you treat them like humans, they think you want to sleep with them." And I can't help but wonder how much is it that she truly reminds him of his wife, and how much of it is just like, well, I'm a guy and there's a girl who's paying attention to me. You're nice to me. My wife was nice to me. And so it's sort of, I don't think it was ever meant to in 1979, but through modern prism, it plays into that fear that women have. How polite, how nice do I have to be to a strange man? And here's like the lesson of, you shouldn't have been as nice to this dude.
Again, this is the victim shaming pod.
I'm not trying to victim shame her so much as it's just like it's almost just like almost like a warning. I don't know.
Yeah, like a cautionary tale.
Yes.
Totally. Well, okay, it is for a lot of reasons.
It's better to be me and not care about the guy's dead wife and just politely be like,
it totally is. I'm not going to argue that. But I will say, I think both of what you said can be true simultaneously, because it's like a little bit of her and a little bit of like what she's actually doing, which is experiencing empathy and compassion and leaning in, as it were. And his because that's what I thought, was just like, okay, so your wife was like a little too sweet for this world also. That's why she's no longer with us, because she probably had the same level of sympathy for you that that Molly does, and you misconstrued it as like she loved you. So, and also he has this ability to see women crying and begging, you know, for him to stop and to be left alone. And all he does, "You're so pretty," you know, because the first thing he says to Eileen when she's strapped on that, I don't know, is it a table, wherever she's like laying on that plank, and he's just like, "You're so pretty. Why don't you like me?" And then he just leaves. He doesn't wait for an answer. So I'm like, okay, this is not about a give and take. His sensory apparatus is fogged with mental illness. And because that was another thing that I found interesting. Like, okay, he gets introduced like with the creepy, you know, like watching them bathe and everything like that. And even then, the 2 other girls are like, "Well, sorry, we're just whatever." But he starts talking, and Molly's kind of like, "Really?" And I'm like, "No, you're naked. Don't do that."
Well, she's still doing this when he first arrives.
She is, but she starts listening to him, and I'm like, "Don't listen. Don't. Darling, what is your face doing?" In that lake or pond or whatever the fuck it was, there's a waterfall behind him. I don't know. All I can think is leeches, personally. But I love the fact that she seems, while she's seeming charmed by him and everything like that, I get because of her, little Pollyanna outfit and everything. I'm like, oh, they're the most out of their time also. They both seem to be kind of like the ones who don't quite fit. So maybe there's like some kind of like air, like an element of camaraderie for her. And that's why she's listening to him, because it's just like, oh, he's just a romantic figure. He's just, a man in a cowboy hat. I mean, granted, it's a creepy Mad Dog Tannen cowboy hat, but it's a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And he says that he was kicked out of the Navy at age 19, kicked in the head at age 20, and kicked into jail at age 21. If those are not like the most suspect details, to just kind of throw at you in succession to make your dander go up or whatever, like just to kind of
and also,
put you on alert.
The way he just sort of like takes a seat, like he's resting a spell, as if he's there with like other people who are clothed, and just hanging out. But the fact that he's being so casual with them in that kind of situation is also,
he's got all the power in that scenario too. Yeah. And he's comfortable that way, and I didn't like that either.
and one thing that this movie solidified for me, between this and Psycho, is if someone tells you that their business isn't doing well because the new freeway, get the fuck out. It's never good.
Every time I've driven up north and I pass through Tulare, I always remember Hilton A. Green, the producer of Psycho, said they always imagined the Bates Motel would be somewhere up near Tulare. So anytime I'm en route to Tulare or just out of Tulare, I always think, don't stop.
Yep.
Don't stop at anything.
Stay on the main freeway. And...
like if it's an emergency, find a franchise. Find something that has to answer to somebody, that gets visited at least semi-regularly. But yeah, something that's going to just kind of like be on its own little oasis, because that's what this is called too, isn't it? Like Slausson's something oasis. I can't remember the exact name.
And with the waterfall, it absolutely kind of feels like one. I get it. Like it's
just so funny to me though that, like, again, he has this romantical way of speaking with his just kind of like, you're never gonna find another place like this in any other place in Earth. No, sir. And I'm like, there are other waterfalls and other swimming holes, as it were,
they never said that it takes place in Texas, but they said they were trying to imply that it was. I don't know how many swimming holes there would be in Texas, even though LA.
It seems very swampy, very, I mean, water moccasins and everything. Yeah, totally. But
I don't know if there are some water spots in Austin, but not like,
I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah, ask away.
Eileen's kill scene.
Well, Eddie, first of all, but before you continue, you referred to Eileen on the board in like the basement, but that's not Eileen.
Okay, which one's Eileen?
Well, Eileen's the girl who goes in, the first girl to go into the house.
So who's the one on the board?
This random girl before them who's like, I pulled over looking for gas.
That was Eileen.
No, because that girl's got blue eyes, Eileen's got brown eyes, and a completely different. At that point, Eileen has already been mannequinized.
That's right. I forgot about that. I totally thought like, oh, she is still alive. It was a mislead. Okay.
Becky comes into the house and she's like,
right. Yeah, I remember that, but but I thought like, oh, but
no,
see, this is what. Okay, this is a theme in this fucking movie of like things happening and I don't really know what they mean, so I just kind of roll with it. And that's like the first thing where I'm like, oh, I thought Eileen was dead. But like there's all these masks that look like the killer. So maybe that wasn't really her. Maybe that was just something decorated to look like her to make us think that it was her, but she's really downstairs. So sorry. I fucked up.
No, I either want to continue with that or I want to hear your question. Let's hear your question. So Eileen's kill scene, how did that happen then? Repaint it for me. See, already I have she's wearing like a red scarf and it starts.
That's right.
Telekinetically getting pulled, and then we cut away. We don't really see.
Okay.
But then we see the aftermath.
because I just wrote this line, and I thought I was talking about the other girls on the board scene. But okay, so Eileen, I wrote what her kill scene. Why doesn't this bother me? And I just wrote implausibility. Maybe if I'd seen it as a kid, and now that you reminded me exactly what it was, now I know what I was talking about. Because okay, I'm not scared of mannequin eyes drifting toward her while she's tying her thing and everything. I'm
Why
sitting there
not?
going like, because I'm like, that would not happen.
Exactly. Mannequin eyes aren't supposed to do that. So why are they doing that? It's not supposed to be.
No. I'm just like, I don't buy it. It's too implausible.
No, but if you were in a room full of mannequins and all of a sudden their eyes started turning at you, would you be like, well, that's not supposed to be, so I'm fine?
I'd be like, what's going on? Okay, who's playing the prank? Also, I wouldn't be in that room. That's another thing. She's in that, everybody goes in that fucking house, and I'm like, what is wrong with you?
I have a real problem with Eileen when he says, don't go to that house, and he leaves. And the first thing she says, there's something funny about him. Something funny about that house, too. I'm gonna go check it out. And they're like, what? And she says, aren't you guys curious? And I'm thinking, no. And thank God, like, I think it's Becky who's like, no. And I'm like,
yeah.
fucking stay fucking put. Why? Why would you go? Why?
Yeah. So she goes in there and then she starts talking, and all the heads are like turning toward her. And that's why I'm like, okay, when I was a kid, just the concept of that would have really bothered me. I probably would have, if not had nightmares, I definitely would have like thought about it, like going to bed and everything like that. But I watch it now and I'm fine. I'm not gonna have trouble getting to sleep tonight.
No. And it's not okay, and it's not fine. You're not supposed to do that.
And it's not like I've never been scared of mannequins before. I actually dated a guy once, had a mannequin in his bedroom, and it was wearing
red fucking flag, dude.
No, I know, totally. But it's a whole story. But no, I remember I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. I mean, he had a name too. But he like wore all his bracelets, so he'd just like take them off and like, like wear it out. And I'd be like, okay, well, you're kind of using him as like a kind of like hat rack / jewelry box / oddity. I mean, he had other things in his home too, but that was the thing that I remember every time I went into his restroom, because he had a restroom adjacent to his bedroom. And every time I'd walk out of the restroom, I'd always have that thing where you stumble and you find somebody where you don't expect to find them. And you just kind of, that social thing, I'm just kind of like, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Every time. I always walked out of that restroom not expecting this mannequin to be there, and I always thought it was a real person on impulse, and immediately started to apologize, and then went, oh my god, it's getting dark, where is he? And I did what I did, but it didn't last. But yeah, so I'm familiar with the imposing presence of mannequins. And if the eyes would have, but see, that's the thing. If the eyes would have gone to me, it's so surreal. I would have been like, what's going on? Okay, where are you? Where are you? But you know what? I'd probably be doing that in the horror movie. I'd probably
and you'd be
dead.
the cliche of the person who goes, who's there? When you're not supposed to.
No, but I wouldn't be like, who's there? I'd be like, come on, guys, this isn't funny. That's me.
Okay, guys, who brought the dog?
There you go. I am Rick Moranis.
Yeah, you are, and you're underestimating your environment, whereas I would be hyper estimating my environment.
There were other much more adult reasons to be afraid of that place, but
I'm glad you see, because I watch it now and I'm not okay with things, and I am so glad I didn't see this as a kid. Yeah. This would have had this movie would have been a problem for me as a kid, a very big problem. Especially towards the end, when we're in the attic and like the brother's room, and then back to the main. Like there's, let's just put it that way. Because generally, I'm not a mannequin guy. This is the first. Like it's always just been ventriloquist dummies and marionettes and stuff that I'm with. But this, and then also I don't know if we want to get into it. We can. It'll probably only take a few minutes, if not whatever. But I have had like an experience I wouldn't call it a haunting, but I've had some sort of encounter, some weird thing involving mannequins, and
Uh-oh.
it wasn't pleasant.
You're telling me.
Okay, we're gonna do like a 5-minute side story, everybody.
Nice. Get comfortable.
I will never ever say that this was a haunting, for sure. You know, I will never say that this was ghosts or supernatural experience. You could explain it all away through but it definitely was a scary thing that happened to me. Okay.
Okay.
Staying at the Queen Mary. Like all good stories, I was staying at the Queen Mary, my one and
haunted as fuck. Yes, yeah. Go on.
I had gone to a wedding earlier that day, and you got to like stay overnight at a discount rate if you're staying in the wedding block. So the wedding happened. Then there was an hour break where you could wander the boat before the reception because they had to reset for the reception. So an hour you can wander the boat. So in the afternoon we wandered to the bottom back section where you could be on the inside of like the propeller room. The propellers obviously are outside, but just on the inside of it, the very, very bottom, you can kind of see the inside of things that spin the propeller. In that room, besides seeing the water, there is like a giant, like a big fat cylinder going through the room. And there's also like a glass, like set into the wall, like this little window with this little mannequin of like a guy with a mustache and like a little sailor man's outfit. And I remember joking, like, oh, he looked like a Cyril to me, like a very Dave Foley, like, hello, my name's Cyril St. John. And I'm like, oh, hello, Cyril. And we were all kind of just joking about Cyril the mannequin. And then we kind of wandered the room, and the cylinder that came through like this giant, huge tube that went through the room, there was like a curved kind of ramp, like the floor you're on went down to the next floor. So we all kind of wandered down there. There might have been like a rope up or something, and we kind of went in anyway. I'm in my early 20s. We go down, and underneath the floor that we're on is another floor. It's all dark, but there's like mannequin parts and like luggage, like old prop luggage. And I'm like, it's kind of creepy down here. Let's get the fuck out of here. All right. Preamble. Later that night, I'm in the room, and I'm with it's a boat, so like the quarters are small, and I'm with someone who I don't want to hear me poo in the bathroom, so I make up an excuse to go get some ice while I actually go to one of the public restrooms so I can take my shit.
Okay.
And I go down to one end, and the like at a certain time of night they close the gates to like the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, fuck, I need to get up to like the top deck to use it. Well, let me walk to the other end. And then, so finally, I'm like, the stairs are all closed, but the elevators are working. Haha. So I'm going to get in the elevator. And I was only one floor down from the top. So I push the top floor.
Uh-oh.
And my elevator goes down.
Uh-huh.
And it keeps going all the way down to the second to last number. And the doors open.
Oh, shit.
A big empty propeller room, and it's totally dark except for the elevator doors open, and the only thing they face is Cyril in his little glass thing with the light on, and he's the only thing you can see in this big dark room. I'm like, oh fuck, it's Cyril. Let me push the button, let me push my floor and push door close, and the floor I need to get to and door close, and the doors close. And instead of going up like I needed it to, it goes down one more and opens to like the luggage. And I'm just like, fuck this. I need the top floor. So then the doors close and it goes up one floor. It opens to Cyril again. And I'm hitting the fucking button. And then it goes back up to my original floor, but not the top floor. At that point, I just get out of the elevator and like I walk to the furthest end of the boat and find the one open stair thing. And then I don't even think I took the shit. And it just that was it. Like I didn't come back with any ice. It was just done. But that was my thing. And you could argue that, yeah, the wiring, there's an electrical thing. There's something weird going on with the elevators. Who the fuck knows? But it was not a great experience between me and Cyril the mannequin.
You know what? The mistake was naming him.
Who named me and unlocked the curse of what?
Yeah.
I didn't make fun of him. He seemed like a Cyril.
No, but you made a connection. You did. You're Molly. In this scenario,
I know.
You made a connection. You opened a door.
I treated him like a human, and
he's like, yes, I'll come in. Thanks for inviting me.
Honestly, he comes with a bucket of ice. You forgot your bucket of ice. No, I'm just glad this story doesn't end with like, and now there's a mannequin of me in the fucking propeller room. You know?
Not yet.
Yeah, we end this podcast. There's like a knock at the door. Cyril's like, it's been 20 years. You forgot your ice. You know,
I'd call Tracy. And if I couldn't reach her, then I'd call, the police and a bunch of people to go check on you. And if I couldn't get anybody to do it, then I do it myself. But I'm a good, distance from you. I mean, there's still a pandemic. I'm not fully vaccinated yet, but if it happens in a month, I will be the first person to drive out and make sure you're okay. But then I'm going to be the guy who goes in and goes, okay, John Carlos, this isn't funny. And then that'll be the end of me. We're going to have to get saved by some
Cyril's
final
eyes
girl.
are fucking moving and you're just going to be treating it like a prank.
I'm going to be like, okay, John Carlos, this isn't funny.
Well, every time the fucking elevator took me to the floor I didn't want to go to, I was definitely like, this is not fucking funny. I'm not.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. That's kind of creepy. I mean, I was going to say about you naming him, and then we'll move on back to the movie. But I had a friend who had, who was haunted. Allegedly, but he was the kind of person who wouldn't believe in that kind of stuff. But I think again, his problem was his whole family was haunted by this thing, and they gave her a name. And anytime he would, maybe I've said this on the pod before, but anytime he would say the name, like telling friends or people about her, she would appear to his brother and he'd get a call, an angry call or a text, just like, you were fucking talking about her, weren't you? But yeah, and adversely the same thing would happen when his brother would be like talking about her, she'd appear to him and he'd be like, you were fucking talking about her. And it happened. It literally, I was there. And after the night he told us, she appeared to his brother that night and he got an angry message the next day. And I'm just like, wow, this is intense. I hope he doesn't talk about her while I'm with you.
I just hope if you're ever with Queen Mary, stay away from the rear elevator.
I'm never going back. Fuck that shit. I went once as a kid before I knew it was haunted. And it was just a visit, for the day. We did like the Spruce Goose and the Queen Mary. And now that I know that the Queen Mary's haunted, it's like, fuck you. No. No, I saw an Unsolved Mysteries once where they talked about, I think they told 3 stories about ghost encounters, and they did the reenactments, like they used to do.
The wet footprints by the pool, right?
Not even that. Like I saw one, it was a lady who was dressed in the winter and she was wearing like a light pink blouse and she disappeared. And I mean, that was really scary when I was a kid, again, scary when I was a kid. And there was one where a woman was on an escalator that was taking her up to like the exit after the tour and everything. They have to do like one last round to make sure that all the premises are empty. And as she was on this escalator, she looked behind her and they did this reenactment where this guy had he looked kind of like a young Vincent Schiavelli, and I love Vincent Schiavelli, but when you've got like a young version of him standing there with dark circles around his eyes, just behind this woman, and she's like, oh, and he scared her a little, and she was like, but okay, I'm just gonna be polite, and when I reach the top, I'm gonna escort him and make sure he gets out. And it was a long escalator. She would have heard him. She was near the top anyway. And as she stepped off and turned around to go like, after you, he had gone. And she would have seen him like running down the escalator. I mean, it's going up. So he would have been like, there would have been a whole bit. But or if he would have jumped off, she would have heard him. But no, he just disappeared. And that stayed with me as a kid. Like that level.
That would really bother me.
Yeah, see, all that shit like really, really got me when I was a kid. Because it's not when I was a kid, there's still like, a little something, like I'm just kind of like, ooh, not fun. I'm not happy I told that story tonight, but
yeah, you think about that later.
No, I'll just think about the mannequins doing this. And I'll just be fine.
Yeah, but the second their mouths drop, and they go, oh, like, come on,
That's hilarious.
It's not hilarious. It's fucked up. It's not. No,
because I don't even know. Okay, I'm like, well, where's the noise coming from? Can she hear at first? Before it happened to Molly, I was like, can they hear that, or is that just for our benefit? Is that like, ooh, and it's another blurred line in this movie where I'm like, I don't really know what's happening.
I'm just gonna get into it then.
Get into it.
There's so much about this movie that isn't clear.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times for other movies, that is a problem. It is a fault. It is a nitpick that I will have and say this is bad. But sometimes I've always believed that, I don't always like when here's the rules and here's the thing. Like, it's better when things are kind of, you don't understand.
Sure.
There's an operating mechanism that's bigger than you and that you don't get to understand, and you don't get to know the rules and you don't get to fully understand it. That's scary to me. There's a lot in here that you don't get to fully understand, and it's a feature, not a bug. Like, it's to me, it really, really works. My lack of being able to understand it, the confusion it creates, is a good problem. It's problematic. It's scary. It's maybe not for everybody. Some people go, I don't understand, what the fuck. No. For me, if I was there, not being able to and to me, that comes down to maybe the two biggest things. If I had to like create a little ball for each one, the ball one is the idea that, like, Mr. Slauson has a brother.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me at first that when he's his brother, I think they call him Davy. First it's a joke about Davy Crockett, but then Davy. You see a lot of shenanigans when people will go into the house and something bad will happen to them. It's when Davy shows up. And then telekinetic things will happen, or, as a result of his presence there. And yet later in the movie, there's this gray area where Mr. Slauson comes and brings some food, to which I don't even fucking understand. It's the mannequin version of Eileen. And he's trying to feed her and she won't eat. And then he remembers, oh, well, let me put on a little Davy mask and make a Davy voice. And then all of a sudden she'll eat. He seemed to be in that thing where, like, when someone would encounter, like when Molly gets in the car and she describes what happened, and she describes this guy who was attacking her, he's like, oh, that's my brother. Shit. Davy refers to his brother, and then Mr. Slauson's referring to his brother Davy. So there seems to be kind of a schizo thing going on.
Yeah.
But then when Mr. Slauson goes in to turn on the radio to attract Davy, and then Davy comes out and she hits him with the fucking gun, he's very, like, first of all, that fucking smile on his face is not okay. He in that moment is very aware of what's going on. And so for that next point, the telekinesis that is happening is no longer just when he's Davy. The telekinesis is now happening when he's himself.
Yeah.
And then I start to wonder, well, how aware are you that it's you, and how aware are you of it's your brother? It was very cut and dry before, that you were just basically schizo double personality sort of thing, at least in your own head. But then it started to become a little Norman Bates, where sometimes you're aware of it, but sometimes you aren't, and you're an observer. So those lines are being blurred, which sucks, because now I can't reason with you if I'm in that scenario, because the rules are no longer black and white anymore. And then we get to a further point where now it's definitely 100% him, as opposed to in the basement where it's Davy in the mask going, my brother doesn't like it when I use my powers. Now it's him going, like, you remind me of my wife, and I'm going to start making mannequins move It's no longer like, well, my brother doesn't like me use my powers. I'm using my powers. The fact that it's not so clear cut
Yeah.
sucks for me. Because if I was in that scenario, I couldn't talk my way out of it, clever my way out of it, try to reason with him.
Yeah.
There's no reasoning, there's no getting in there when there is no rule. It's too nebulous and obtuse, and that's scary to me when you can't reason with someone. Fuck that.
Yeah. No, I totally, after our
You could talk your way out of you could talk your way out of Norman to a certain degree. I couldn't get out of this. On top of which, the second ball is, so there's like, I get making mannequins move.
Yeah.
What I don't get is, like, he can do voices and he can do impersonations of people who were dead or gone. So he can do like Woody's voice. And when Eileen's first coming into the house and you hear voices on the other side of the door and you open it and it's an old lady and an old man. And you're like, all right, so, because first of all, his own voice, like when he talks, is already creepy.
Yeah.
The fact that he can impersonate other people's voices, but also not even be in the same room to do it. It's like he can throw his voice.
Yeah, something like that.
What the fuck is that shit?
I don't know.
Especially when Molly and Becky are outside the house and they can hear like their friends inside. I have to wonder, well, one, is that for them to try to lure them in, which seems like the obvious answer, but also like, but what if it's not for them? And what if Davy's just playing? And we're hearing him playing with their mannequins and their voices. Because same thing with Eileen coming up to that door. Is that for her to hear? Because it stops when she gets in. So is he just sort of like, well, I'm going to make my little grandma and grandpa mannequins talk right now. And then, oh, she's here. The rules of it's he's got fucking Woody's head when he's like chasing Molly, and he'll throw it and it'll still be like Molly, and it's her, like, so I don't understand, like, and I don't say I don't understand it as critique. It's just scary that like I can't grasp the rules and what your full powers are. It's threatening to me when it's bigger than me. And even more so than that, it gets even more complicated.
Yeah.
Because first of all, there's essentially three different kinds of mannequins in this. Mannequins that look like mannequins.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Then there's weird faced, like ghoulish type mannequins.
Like Halloween masks. Yeah.
Yes. And then there's also actual people that they've cast to put in the movie to stand still and then just like move their heads. And as we see him dancing with like his wife at the end, like there's definitely moments where it's a mannequin, it's not a mannequin, it's a mannequin, it's not a mannequin. It could be perspective, but also as we learn, when fucking Jerry comes in, Jerry looks like a person. Jerry jumps out the window, runs away. We never see what happens to him. Right. So when he shows up at the end, we're left to believe that this is really Jerry. And yet, and if this is Mr. Slauson fucking, not just the director fucking with us, but Mr. Slauson fucking with Molly, he's having Jerry act like, I'm here to save the day.
Yep.
Just so Mr. Slauson can walk up and be like, ha, ha, ha. Then he pulls his arm off. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah. But he looks like a person, but he's a mannequin. Yeah. So he can make people look like mannequins, but he can also make people look like people, but they're mannequins.
I guess.
But then, and I thought maybe it's because, he makes a cast of that lady's face, and then he's got a cast of his wife's face. And they talk about how the wife's mannequin looks and feels like flesh, even though she actually doesn't. But what's extra fucked up is that Jerry, when he's disassembling him, is reacting like, what's happening to me, which is so not okay. Like, he's like a lucid, like, so if Mr. Slauson is controlling him, he's controlling him to act like this is happening to him, which is bad and fucked. All of it's fucked up, Eddie. All of it's not okay. And also the implication, let's say he wasn't a mannequin the whole, because he's the only, like, when Eileen gets turned into a mannequin, she looks like a fucking mannequin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Jerry's the only one that looks like people. So what if, here's the fucked up thing. If he's able to throw his voice telekinetically, what if it's not telekinesis? What if it's like, I don't want to call it magic, but it's something more.
Like throw a mirage, you mean?
Yeah, but he can do different voices and he can do them when he's not in the room.
Yeah.
I just have this horrible idea of like, what if Jerry really was Jerry and he could just turn him into a mannequin that instantly? And that's why he's reacting like, what the fuck is happening to me? And I know you're making this face because it's not believable, it's not real. But that's what's scary to me, is like, no, that shouldn't be possible.
Okay.
What if a guy just came up to me, a guy who can turn things into mannequins, and just pulled my arm off? I'd be like, wait, what? As you, that's fucked up. It's all fucked up. And it's none of those rules, none of that logic is set in stone. So again, I don't have any way out. I don't have any way to even come to terms with it. It's almost like dream logic. And that in itself is scary if you're kind of operating in a fog where you need groundedness to survive, and things are foggy and nebulous. Fuck that shit. Fuck it in its ass. I don't like it.
I love hearing you talk like that, though, because you've got me thinking. I thought I was overthinking it by just kind of supposing while I was watching it this time around, and she saw him dancing with his wife, in a circle, and there's a Molly on the floor. Yeah, and I was just kind of like, oh, so maybe he can alter your perception of reality. But you went beyond that and thought, well, what if he can alter reality? And that's creepy. That's definitely creepy. I'm grateful, because that actually adds an extra creep. I mean, there's plenty of creepy in this. Like, I'm not going to pretend there isn't, but it's funny that there seem to be maybe just as many things that are intended to be creepy that I find somewhat entertaining and a little silly. And that, as I find, like, legitimately creepy. Like, I'm just kind of like, well, in any movie this would be creepy, but because okay, I can't help but when he's, especially now that I know the spoiler, and that was the one spoiler I really, really remembered, was the identity thing of him being both people, the Norman Bates of it all. And but I supposed it the first time I watched it too. I was just kind of like, well, we've never seen the two of them in the same room. But I was also like, but maybe they want me to think they're both the same person, and maybe they're not. Maybe they take turns being this, like I was ready for the movie to just dish it out and show me like whatever it wanted to show me. So I was actually, the first time around, a little disappointed that it was exactly what I was supposing, but I'm like, all right, whatever. But now, because I know it definitely, I can't help but see him again, because I'm taking things like at face value and like, thinking like this, that he's doing, it becomes a vaudevillian routine. Like, I think about that I Love Lucy episode where she's pretending to be Fred and Ethel's like grandmother or mother. She's like a grandmotherly character, and she's like wearing gray hair and like a kerchief. But then they're like, well, we need Mrs. Ricardo here to sign the papers. She's like, oh, you do? Hark, I hear her. Oh, and she runs out of the room, and she comes back, and she's Lucy. And they're like, oh, but where's Mother? We need her to sign this. Oh, I'll go get her. She runs out, and then in comes Mother. Here I am. And I just keep imagining that's every time he's leaving, he's just like, backstage, just quick change and everything like that. And he comes out like in his little, yes, Des, I'm sorry. But he comes out in his little, she'll stop eventually. Yeah, I know. She just brought me a toy. Anyway, so he comes back and he's just like in his little, like kind of, I'll call it like his Leatherface garb, because he kind of reminds me of Leatherface in his lady look. That's something that is a little creepy to me, like in the distance, just kind of seeing the face with the makeup and with, it's a doll head, but it's got like the dark hair. And I'm like, okay, I see your movie. but it makes me laugh. I just keep thinking like, oh, he's got to go back there and like, shimmy into something. You're like, oh, it's like opening night every time he exits the room, and it just makes me laugh.
It's the day of the show,
exactly. Oh my god, I gotta work on myself. But okay.
You know what's actually? It's funny I made that reference because I get when Mr. Slauson sits down at the fucking watering hole, I think of Louis Arquette.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, oh, I could always go for some beans. Like, it's just such a cliche, like, well, I'm just gonna rest a spell by my watering
that's
hole.
sweet. Because I don't think about that at all. Because I find him him adorable in Waiting for Guffman, and I do not find Slauson. Like I said, he's Mad Dog Tannen to me in that moment with his hat. Oh, just like kind of, well, look what we have here. That's the vibe I get from him. So I don't think about that at all.
Actually, I don't get Mad Dog or Biff or anything you just said.
No, I mean, just from the hat, and also he's in power, they're naked, and he is comfortable with it. And I'm like, no, I don't like you. There's a lot.
I think if he's been in other things, I've not been aware of it. I know I think he's a former baseball player turned actor. Oh, wow. He was starred in like some Western. He starred in a Western TV series.
Makes sense.
And I know the first person they went for this was Jack Palance, and he turned it down. And then they went for a second actor, and then he turned it down, and they got him. But I'm like, between this guy and Jack Palance, like, I see the mold you were trying to fill. Like, I see the type. Holy
voice.
Yeah, this guy's like 6'3".
Yeah.
And I see him in frame with these other characters and just towers over them. He fucking just scoops up Becky, when she flees the house. And again, she flees the house from Davy, runs down the hill, and then he's on the other side. Like, so again, you're right. He doesn't have to take everything off and like change, But also Eddie, even the change bothers me.
What do you mean?
Because Mr. Slauson has a limp.
Yes.
And Davy doesn't.
Yeah.
And they do that one, from a production standpoint, you do that so that your audience doesn't guess right away that they're the same person, and you're separating their visual identities. What bothers me isn't that Mr. Slauson has a limp, it's that he doesn't have it when he's Davy.
Yeah, totally.
Because the way your body and muscles and everything works, you shouldn't be able to overcome that limp.
Yeah.
If anything, I would do like the opposite, where like your false identity has a limp and it's something that you're affecting. But the fact that he has a limp and then he doesn't means to me either it's, again, more unexplainable magic, or it's psychosomatic to the degree that he can like override his muscles, which is just intense. Or it's part of telekinesis where he can just sort of make it better. And then the creepy thing that I thought of, and this is just me, it's probably not creepy for you, but I just thought the idea of what if he doesn't have the limp when he's his brother, because really at heart that is kind of who he is, or allows himself to be most of the time, and he has the limp because he is affecting a limp as Mr. Slauson. Yeah. And the fact that he's choosing to do that really bugs me and bothers me. That's just creepy to me.
It makes me wonder. It kind of gives me spoilers for Primal Fear, everybody, if you haven't seen it yet.
For a 25-year-old movie,
yeah. No, and nobody talks about it anymore now. But if you don't want to know a spoiler for Primal Fear, I mean, like, deal breaker spoiler. It's the whole point of watching the movie. It is the spoiler. Skip ahead like 30 seconds. But it's like for me, it was that there never was an Aaron kind of question. Like, I'm just like, so which brother is he? And we don't really get I don't feel like a tight answer for that either. Like, for all we know, he could have made it all up just in his head, and the brother was somebody else entirely. But that's a level of ambiguity that I really appreciate, is just the fact that we don't know what is being invented and what is being just kind of like him relaxing into himself, or
And that
is
gets
he
under my
sick?
skin.
Yeah. Or is he sick enough that it's all just natural to him? He just relaxes into all of
Right.
it because he's a natural born manipulator of reality.
Right. Well, the
So,
scary thing to me is that he really is who he is, and that there was
uh,
a brother,
yeah,
but that so even though he is him, he spends more time, or at least dedicates enough of himself to playing with his powers as his brother, that he's still choosing to affect something false for Mr. Slauson. Like he's lost.
yeah.
If the limp is a choice, it's just sad and creepy that he's so far gone from his true self and
Mhm.
leaned too far into his false self. And that's also, you can't reason with that. You can't argue your way out of dealing with him.
One thing he has in common with Leatherface for me, hands down, is I am not curious about the way he spends his days when he's alone at all. We've seen
Right.
enough. I don't need to know anymore. I'm good.
Well, the one thing that is painfully obvious to me is that when you look at the sheer number of mannequins, that this is not the first group that he's encountered. Clearly,
Totally.
when you see the girl that's down there in the basement already, like we're
Mhm.
already coming in on the end of another movie, basically.
And she's made up her mind like we're going to die. Like she says it over and over
Yeah.
again in so many ways. Like she's the we're all
And
doomed. That's who she
Eddie,
is.
that
Yes.
fucking death.
Okay,
There's no.
that's what I want to ask you about too.
It's not okay. It's it's not bloody. It's not gory. It's fucking evil, though. If anyone's wondering what I'm talking about, he smothers her face in plaster.
Yes.
But it's not just that he smothers her face in plaster, and it's not just that she dies. Not from first of all, not breathing is gonna suck.
Yes.
Dying from the trauma in your heart because she performed and she even hear her heartbeat give out. What the extra salt in the soup, Eddie, is that he's fucking narrating what he's doing to her while he does it. Now I'm gonna do your eyes. That's gonna get real dark. The thing about plaster is it's real cold at first, but then it gets warm. Now I'm gonna cover your mouth. Not gonna be able to breathe through your mouth. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
I get what makes the plasters scary, but it looks like Bizquick to me.
Well, okay. This is a case where I can separate production versus intent of what's happening in the scene. I know what plaster looks and feels and moves like. That ain't it. And they even talked about in the commentaries, like, yeah, that's dough. I'm like, of course it's fucking
Yeah.
dough.
Yeah.
Like, because we couldn't put plaster on her fucking face. Duh. So we had to use dough. And I'm like, well, it sticks to his hand when he's pulling away from her face like dough. But I can still handle the intent of what the scene is, and then the way she fucking shakes as her heart gives out. Fuck that. Oh
Okay.
yeah, everything that happens in the basement isn't okay. When we first get down, you mentioned this before, but when we first get down there, it's not so much that we're seeing his brother and he's in these fucked up masks. It's that he goes up to this girl, and it sounds like there's already been conversations about, I like you, you should like me.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he's so tired, he goes, why don't you like me? Like, fuck, that's creepy.
That's nightmarish in any movie. That's one of those things where I'm just like,
And
that poor
yeah,
girl.
yeah. And then anytime anything's meant to be ironic, not meant to be ironic, but they're down there and he's got fucking Jerry and Becky, and he's like, hey, we're gonna have a party. It's like, this is not a fucking party.
Yeah.
By saying it in that, like, none of that is okay.
It's over quite quickly too. Like once she won't drink the drink and he drinks it for her, like party's over or whatever he does. That voice is creepy too, though. That voice in and of itself,
on its own terms is creepy. But when he pokes the truth of the situation at someone in that tone, it's like when they're trying to get the key. And then right when Jerry starts to grab it, he telekinetically pulls it away. I forget what he says, but he like calls him out on it. Like, it's a pretty neat trick, huh? Like,
Yeah.
anytime he
Oh my God.
acknowledges.
And now that we've kind of like pushed beyond telekinesis and like talked about him manipulating reality, like the prospect, I actually really like that. I'm going to watch the movie again, like with that lens, because now I'm thinking like, oh, what if he wasn't, what, oh my God, what if the game is that he didn't even move the key, but he made him think he moved the key?
Move the key.
Like, so while he's reaching for it, but it's right there. What if he's like just altering his perception, making him think that he's moving the key, but it's within his reach the entire time.
Which is
but
even
he
more
just
fucked
sees
up.
it. Yeah, that's even more fucked up. I
mean,
that.
I still think he is moving the key, but there
Me
are
too,
all these
but
other little
I'm
scenes.
having fun with this thing now. Yeah.
But yeah, I can't help but wonder when I'm watching him spinning with his wife at the end.
Yeah.
You know, how much of it is when we're being led in onto what he's seeing?
Yeah.
But also it's being shot from Molly's angle. So how much of it is what she's seeing?
Yeah, yeah. I know.
And just fuck, there's too much of this movie that bothers me because
well, he
it's so
scrambles
ambiguous.
her brain. I mean, because obviously she's not well by the end. I mean,
right.
you know.
And the first time I saw that movie, I didn't like the ending. I didn't work for me. It felt like the ending to a different experience. Like it just went for a kooky ending. I've warmed up to it. Well, the more and more I study Molly and what she's going through, I almost feel like she's snapped or she's gone through enough before she grabs the axe. And to me, like killing him feels like too much more of a back to reality, making a lucid choice, trying to escape thing. That's why the ending didn't really connect for me. But I now more accept like, no, you could still be lost in all this chaos and still retain the intent of wanting to kill Slauson and then still looking around at the mess you're in and grasping at any kind of straw to be like, well, me and my friends need to get the fuck out of here. Well, I'm gonna grab my friends and we're gonna get the fuck out of here with my little friends. But
you know why I'm okay with that and why I'm not okay with it? I'm actually okay with it from that angle as far as her like, you know, taking the axe and everything, because it takes her forever to actually use it.
Reach for it, yeah.
Yeah, right. The fact, and then when she's holding it, it's like she's waiting. Like he's clearly seen her a couple times, if he's paying any attention to her whatsoever, spinning around with his wife.
No, he's too into it with his wife.
Yeah. But she's also there like, after, okay, she seemed lucid when she was telling what's his name to kill him and he wasn't doing it. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Kill him, yes. And then she has the opportunity. And I feel like the reason she didn't do it off of what you were saying is that she is starting to like lose reality and wonder, will it even, maybe she's wondering, will it do any good? Is he even really here? I feel like if we're looking at it from that angle, I think it is a good choice because it's not like the most sensible thing she could do in that scenario based on the fact that it takes her so damn long to do it. That said, it was infuriating me watching her take so damn long to kill him after she's telling Jerry, kill him. And I'm like, what is going on? And then when we find out why, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm not angry anymore, but now she's taking forever. Fuck. And then she's driving around with her mannequin friends. I'm like, okay. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. It feels like a kooky, fucked up ending.
Yeah, it's a what the fuck moment. But that said, I would totally go see Tourist Trap 2 with Molly as the killer. And we all know it. Like, I would love that.
The first time I saw the movie, I'm like, are you trying to make me feel like she's just as crazy as Slauson now? And the older, I mean, not the older, but the later times I've seen it, I just think it's more like just her desperation of her attempting to reach back to like the normalcy of me and my friends driving. Like, this is what we are now. It's not she's the new bad guy and she's that lost or anything. But you could tell that story though.
I would. I'd go see that story. Yeah, I'd love that movie.
This is like a really random little thing, but now I can't help but wonder every time we see that little, is it not an eagle? It's the little vulture that's on the sign.
Is it?
When they first go to Slauson's, there's a vulture on a sign, and then when they're exiting, the shot starts on the vulture and pulls up. I always wonder, like, is that just being controlled by Slauson? Is that really just like a little fucking petrified bird that, like, it's not even like a real fucking vulture?
Oh.
It's taxidermied. It's a mannequin. And he always, because it's always just on the sign going, just a little thing I wonder about.
I wrote somewhere here, I don't remember what moment it was, but I did just write, is Molly hallucinating the mannequin? It was before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre window jump that I think Jerry did.
Oh, so good.
But I just wrote, is Molly hallucinating the mannequin? I don't know why. I don't remember what.
Oh, yeah. It's a great moment when she's in the bed and there's like a brunette mannequin.
Oh, and it's like
and
giving
then
her
it, like,
water
comes
and
down.
shit.
Yeah. And then we cut back to it and it's a mannequin.
Yeah, and it's
again.
a mannequin.
Yeah.
And we never get an answer for that either. That's something that I'm just kind of like, oh, all right.
The lack of clear answers in this movie fucking bothers me. Not as a criticism, as a person.
Yes. Who experiences life.
Not okay, Eddie. There's a lot in here that's not okay.
I want to ask you something.
Okay.
Okay. It is, because this seems to be something that really creeps people out. And it's not like I don't get it. But I remember getting kind of soured on it. I think it was season 3 of American Horror Story, where Dennis O'Hare was playing a grown man who played with dolls, and he was all kind of grody and, not pleasing. He wasn't aesthetically pleasant, let's put it that way, by mainstream standards. And he had like long hair, and he looked kind of like Riff Raff from Rocky Horror. But he was a grown man playing with dolls. And I remember the way they shot it in that show, it was like, ew, look how creepy he is. Isn't he creepy playing with dolls? He's a grown man. And I remember just being kind of like, okay, I mean, yeah, it's a little creepy. I don't want to be in that room, but come on, American Horror Story, bring it. And watching this was a little bit creepier because, I know he's a killer and everything like that. But there's something about, it makes me wonder, like, is this like a kind of like socialized, if that's a word, like bias that's like built into us, like, about like men not being allowed to, like, behave feminine or anything like that. Because watching him play with it, it's like, okay, it's scary because I know he's a killer and because he's in his own world, but I can't help but wonder if there's like an extra like kind of social level, like the same way they would like have like men dress as women to like kill people, not just Psycho, but a lot of really exploitative movies that came out subsequently and stuff like that. Yeah. And where to be anything other than like a man's man was to be perverse and to be troubling and bizarre and, all of those things. And I don't know, I wondered if it struck you in any particular way.
No, I didn't get
just
that.
him bouncing the dolls like with all the mannequins around him while they're trying to get through the hallway.
I don't consider, like, mannequins are too removed to me from dolls for it to fall into that sort of category of these playing.
But he had actual dolls. He had actual dolls though. Well, he was on the floor.
And Molly grabs one and like,
I love that.
She says something to it when she puts it down, when she gets up.
She kisses it. She like kisses it, but I love the fact that she grabs it while he's on the store, like she's looking for it for comfort. But then she looks at it like, "Is this?" But
no, I love that impulse for comfort.
Yeah, totally.
Especially considering the scene that it actually is like Slauson is like saying, "Tell me you love me," and like there's been plenty of movies where like men are aggressive and doing unconsenting things to women in horror.
Yeah.
Very few of them get under my skin the way his face is pressed against her face and his nose is smushing into her nose and he's begging her to like say that she loves him. Bothers the fuck out of me. So yeah, you grab that doll and you find whatever comfort you can get. Okay. Fuck.
I made exactly the face I made while you were describing it while I watched it. I was just kind of like, I could feel him on my face, and I'm just like,
well, that's because to me, this is a movie of madness. This is about a man who is alone.
Yeah. Who
has gone mad after not only his wife died, but you find after he killed his wife and his brother and feels bad about it and blah 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 blah. And problem is he's also a telekinetic weirdo. But we're at that point we're no longer playing little games. It's not my brother. Now it's just show me you love me. Like it's it's extra not okay when it's just the curtain is, you know. But then he shakes himself out of it into this kind of level of clarity of just like, oh yeah, killed my wife. Like I'm gonna stop pressing my face on your face and just feel bad about it all. And I love that he says, because they were whoring. Like, no, they were cheating.
He needed
at least my verbiage is completely different than your verbiage. And later he has the word cheat, but he's like, yeah, she was whoring, he was whoring, they were whoring behind my back.
I mean, it felt condemning. Yeah, I liked it.
Yes, it felt like a sin.
Yeah.
No, I never ever attributed anything shameful for him doing things that felt, because if it was like a house, I guess, full of just mannequins, maybe. But the fact that he has a tourist trap attraction with, you know, things that move, like, and they're not the best animatronics, but we set a precedent that he has, you know, automatons that you're led to believe. Means to me, it's an extension of that. It's an extension of an attraction.
Okay.
Not just him playing with dolls. I never got that vibe from the movie. I mean, there's a version of this movie that you could do that did that, but I don't.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, and again, it didn't feel like a bold kind of statement or anything, but it did feel like an element that I'm like, I wonder if people would go in this direction nowadays and how it would be received. Because there is an element of me, even like I had a kind of like a grown man playing with dolls. Yeah, kind of creepy, but grown man playing with action figures. But that's just because that's me. But it's funny because actually it made me think, like, I was like, oh, but I have dolls. I don't play with them. But I some years ago, I did drag and I got exposed to, I did a drag show called Chico's Angels, and I got exposed to Charlie's Angels, the TV show, for the first time. Going to be tied in with this movie in a moment. But yeah. But I had never seen it before. Yeah, but I had never seen it before, and I binged it, and I was like really getting into it. I became an instant fan. I'm a fan to this day. I think I've mentioned it on the pod before. And I remember I looked on eBay to see, because I remember there were dolls in the 70s that came out that looked like, you know, like there was incredible likeness of like Kate Jackson and Jacqueline Smith and Farrah Fawcett and my brain. Fuck, it'll come to me.
Yeah, I can't.
Anyway. The other actress.
The other one who's not Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah. The other one who's not Farrah Fawcett. Fuck. I love her too. I can't remember her name right now because I'm
do you? How much do you love her, Eddie? Enough to remember her name?
Shut up. Shut up. I hate you. She played Chris Monroe. That was her character's name. I remember that. But anyway, I'm not going to remember it. Anyway, okay. So point is, they had these dolls and everything, and they were like 4 in a bag, you know, just like out of box and everything. And I'm like, I don't need them to be collectors or anything like that. In fact, I want to see the likeness and everything, because they were just little girl dolls, but they looked really, really nice. So I got them for like a bargain. So I bought them off eBay, got them, delivered them. They're still in the bag, you know, like they're just sitting somewhere. But every now and then I would take them out and just kind of just like, I wouldn't play with them, but I just like look at them and just go, look at your face, God, you're so pretty. And I put them away. So I'm like, okay, well, that would probably creep somebody out if they had to watch me do that. And you know what? Watching me customize action figures, that might creep somebody else out somewhere too. So who am I to say? But I did feel, I don't know, it was just an element. It occurred to me, and I was like, how much of this is sexual assignment? You know, like what we designate, like, well, that's something men shouldn't do, and that kind of thing. Or
for what it's worth, I like your customized DC action figures.
Oh, thank you. I have to finish them. But okay. So Charlie's Angels being tied into this movie.
Wait, yeah. Eddie, Cheryl Ladd.
I hate you.
Just Cheryl Ladd.
I'm just gonna sit here and hate you for 5 seconds. Okay, I'm done. I was counting in my head. I hope I achieved 5 seconds. Okay. But okay, so I have a question about Tanya Roberts. The Charlie's Angels. I remember her name. If I saw a movie with Cheryl Ladd in it today, I would have remembered her name. But anyway, no, it's nothing to do with like her character or anything like that.
Oh, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say?
No, it's just one question that I had. When did her shoes fall off? Because at one point she's running outside when she escapes and she's barefoot, and I'm like, why is she barefoot?
I don't know.
Do you know? Okay, it's just cause then, I guess.
Because when they leave the basement and they go up the steps, she doesn't have shoes, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I didn't notice until she was outside, and I'm like, why is that happening?
Yeah. All I do know, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
I do know that from the commentary, he did mention that, because you see her running and then running and then running, and then she eventually gets caught up with Slauson, who scoops his giant 6'3", just scoops her up and takes her. He mentions that she's barefoot in the scene, so she did all the running barefoot because the pain of running barefoot helped her cry because she's supposed to be crying. And he even said the problem is, including after we'd cut, she'd still be crying. I'm like,
oh no, oh, I hate that shit.
But
fucking 70s.
But he made it sound like almost the way his verbiage was that she chose to do the running barefoot.
Still, fucking
the only problem for me is
knowing
that and watching it again recently is like there's no clear shot of her crying, so it
was like for nothing. Yeah,
it's kind of all for naught. Yeah,
it's like
and going really quick, just going back to like what you're saying about the I Love Lucy theatrics. She's running from Davy at the house,
right?
And he gets down and to the bottom of the hill, and he's dressed as I think at some when he's chasing Molly with fucking Woody's head.
Yeah,
he is the brother.
Yeah,
he throws it, but then he comes out of the water as Slauson.
Yeah,
he's constantly.
He can teleport too.
One, so he can teleport, and that's definitely a problem people have with movies a lot. Is whenever the killer can magically teleport to wherever. But the fact that so much of this movie seems like he's magic, fucking whatever. But yes, you were going to say about the late great Tanya Roberts, who literally died last year. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. No, I just wanted to ask, like, why is she barefoot? But no, no, that's horrible to hear that she chose to do that and that none of it is on screen. But good for her commitment and whatever at that stage in her career. I do. Yeah.
I was gonna say between like I grew up knowing her because of Beastmaster and A View to a Kill, and I like that 70s show. But honestly, one of the things that bugged me is when she died, and there's quite a few publications, including I think either Hollywood Reporter or Variety, did not list, not like but they'll just do these paragraphs going, oh, they came here and at this career they did this, then they did this, and then she moved here and did this, and like Tourist Trap wasn't on there, and I get that it's kind of a cult horror movie. But like, it's one of her better roles. I mean, I know like Sheena, was it Sheena? Yeah, like Sheena was like a lead
queen of
role.
and
Beastmaster is more well known, but like she's very like, especially like, aren't you guys curious? No, I'm not curious. I quite like her in this movie. In fact, one little thing, side note, but yes, I like her in this movie a lot. Yeah. Very engaging lead, really reads on camera great. I feel terrible when in fact, that's one of the turning points in the movie to me, is when they get back, when he scoops her up, she thinks she's safe. And Slauson, that's the first time we really see Slauson as Slauson, making all the mannequins do stuff.
Right.
That's when it really starts getting extra creepy for me, because it's not his brother anymore, it's him. And there's something very knowing in his eyes when he's doing it. And fun fact, when that knife goes in her neck at the end, or what kills her, they talked about how like it's like a knife there's like a wooden block under her hair, and there's a prop knife that like goes down a string and like lodges itself in the wood. And they're like, that's not Foley that we added later. Like that the sound that we picked up just sounded so good. We just used the on-set audio of that thunk.
Yeah.
And it's a good thunk. And
it's a good thunk, yeah.
It's a good thump. Anyway, so yeah, I feel terrible when she dies.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting was I got the Vegas kind of hint. You know, you don't get much when they're in the car, other than like Jerry's driving. I think she's in the front. But when they're leaving the Oasis, I get this sense that her and Jerry are like a thing. But they never
Hmm.
like, this is my boyfriend. But when Slauson asks her, you know, so how long you and Jerry been married? Been a while. She goes, yeah. And I went, huh. So the next time I watched it, he's not wearing a ring. She's not wearing a ring.
Oh,
Okay, maybe they don't. Maybe they're just a young couple and they can't afford. He can't afford like a nice fancy ring, whatever.
maybe
But
they're
then I also
holdover
can't.
hippies.
Maybe it is
Yeah.
79. I can't help but also just wonder if it's one of those cases again where you shouldn't. Where Molly's the one who allows herself to be too friendly to a stranger.
Yeah.
Like they're not married. He mistakes them for being married, and she doesn't want to correct him and engage in more dialogue than she needs to with this man. So he goes, "Oh, you've been married a long time?" She goes, "Yeah, yeah, it's
Oh,
been a while." Oh, well, you should, you know.
right.
I think
That makes
there's
sense.
which all just fits more into that little theming for me within that story.
Yeah. I like that. The
Yeah, me
only
too.
thing that I really kind of noticed in any interaction she had with Slauson was when they're wondering what happened to Elaine, and he's just like, "I'm gonna go find her," and he grabs a gun, and
Oh
she's
yeah.
just, and either she or Molly, I can't remember who, says, "With a gun," and he's like,
Yep.
"Okay, not with a gun," and he puts it down. I'm like, there is a problem here. What is? And you're way too calm. You were both way too calm. You're not alarmed.
And
You're
also that
just
was
kind
my
of like still
response.
concerned. Yeah.
When I'm watching that, that's one of the few times where I feel like I would have been like, with a gun. Like,
I also had to say one thing about Becky is like by the time, if we're going by like story beats that this matches with like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, um, I'd probably equate like her getting into the house with you know, like that shot of like the house like engulfing, you know,
mhm.
and everything like that. But she full on climbs a trellis to break and enter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there is, it's not like you just kind of stumbled into something. It's like there was intent. You saw a lit window. You made the decision to go into the dark window, so then you could just kind of like peek on what's going on in the light window. And then you've got this playful kind of air, like the one that I keep saying I am, but I'm not this person at this point in the movie. Because number one, I'm not going to break into that house. I don't care.
Nope.
And also, once I get there, I'm not going to see like a form underneath a sheet and assume it's my friend.
Right.
And I'm not. And if mannequins start singing at me and sighing at me and all of that, like and everything, I don't know, everything about that whole sequence. I couldn't. I wasn't on board with. I was like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do. There was nothing about this that feels. Even this. Even the point when she decided to be scared. I'm like, oh, now you're scared. And I'm like, by now, if I wasn't scared by now, I'd probably just be kind of like, shut up, and just start knocking it down. But that could also just
I
be
wouldn't,
like,
but yeah,
no,
you're
it
a
could
better
also
man
just be
than
like
me.
a reaction to fear. Like, I'm going to be bigger than my fear. I'm going to be scarier than the thing that's scaring me. Shut up. You know, be like that. Uh, but another thing that I noticed was just like in, again, with the Psycho story beats, there was another case where, was it her who walked over to the chair where she thought it was Elaine, and then it turned around and it was, what's his name? It was Davy, and in the mask and everything, or at least something in the mask, and it turned around and it had like a shroud over it, a knitted shroud. Was
Well,
that? I mean, I
yeah.
just got Norma Bates, the discovery of Norma
Oh,
Bates
okay.
in that moment. Yeah.
It's funny because I had a Texas Chainsaw vibe from that. But
Oh,
you're right. The chair is very Norma, but I was thinking, you know, Pam when they go to the freezer and she leaps out, and that
right.
Eileen mannequin goes.
Oh, yeah, 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 totally.
It's
Yeah.
it's just, to me it was the Texas Chainsaw beat.
Yeah, I got that. I love
That
that
that that
when, yeah.
now that first I because again it also confuses me that because that's the first time because you don't see the Woody, you see Eileen's mannequin first, I think.
Mhm.
Um, Instantly, I'm like, So is it her with just like a weird creepy mask over her?
Yeah.
Or has she been turned into a mannequin? And she's been turned into a mannequin that looks, again, because there's three different kinds of mannequins, totally human looking, mannequin looking, and grotesque mask looking. She's a grotesque mask looking mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he does to them? Or is this a fate that befell her through magic? I don't understand.
Who
It's all
knows?
creepy though. And I still, so in the making of, on the, they talk about how he wrote like a little manifesto of like, this is what the mannequins need to be and what they shouldn't be, and he like gave it to Bob Burns. And it says, and I paused to read it, nothing terribly juicy was in there, but he did mention that like, to understand the mannequins, you need to understand Mr. Slauson, and like he takes tourists, they come into his trap, and then he makes mannequin replicas of them. And I went, replicas? Well, then what's happening to the originals? Because the impression I got is that this is them.
Me too.
Especially considering Jerry comes in and, you know. Mm-hmm. But that just makes it even more weird that he's able to whip up like a replica, or does he just turn them into a mannequin and that is the replica of their humanity? And it's just a matter of perspective because it's in her clothes. And then, anyway. I will say Eileen has a really fun little beat though that I like when they're in the lagoon and Slauson's like, oh, your other friend is a lady? You're like, no, he's a he.
Yeah. Yes. Appreciate that
all the sass.
So much. I know exactly
shutting him
what's
down.
happening in that. I know exactly what's happening in that moment too. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, good for you.
Great.
Good for you,
yep.
honey. I've had friends do that when I'm on my way. You know, like to some guy who's bothering them and just like, no, he'll be here any minute. And I always know to just show up and butch it up a little bit, you know.
Yep.
Don't show up at the bar and just go like, hey girl, you know, but just be like, hey, what's going on? Ooh, you talking to someone? Nice. You know, like, what's your name? You know, just my straight guy voice.
You gotta tell the killer on the phone in Scary Movie, my boyfriend's coming and he's black and he plays football and he'll kick your ass.
Okay, in Scream, she says he's big and he plays football, and all Carmen Electra says in Scary Movie is he's black and he'll kick your ass. Jesus Christ.
I combined the two. First of all, that got such a big laugh in the theater. Yes, such a huge laugh in the theater. Because the football thing doesn't work when you find out that it's Prince later. And again, that joke would raise an eyebrow if it wasn't, you know, the Wayans brothers as the co-writers and producers of the movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
God, I want to go watch that movie again. I love that fucking movie.
There's so much in that movie that like, okay, so black guys wrote this, right? Okay, thank God. Holy shit.
And they're saying a lot of it too. So
I'm just saying, like a Steve Smith writing that entire script. You know, you might raise an eyebrow or two.
Just it'd be canceled. It would be canceled today. Yeah. But one thing that I really appreciate with Molly is just like her line reading when it's finally revealed who, you know, that they're both the same person. And I don't know if I'm going to do it exactly. I tried to illustrate it the way she says it. I want to hear
you say it.
Okay.
Because it's my favorite moment.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Something like that. I just tried to do like little arrows to indicate.
I wrote you with 4 O's and a couple question marks.
Yeah. And I have to say I'm stunned because I saw that and I was just kind of like, oh, because again, the second time I'm just kind of like, there are a lot of things that I'm just like, oh, I don't really remember the third act. I just remember, you know, the M. Night Shyamalan, Shyamalan, is that how you say it? Shyamalan. M. Night, I don't watch enough of his movies. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So M. Night I already forgot. M. Night. I'm just going to call it M. Night. But M. Night, I'll do it better. I'll do better next time. M. Night, when what? Not when he says, I completely lost my train of thought now. Okay, in the twist.
Yes.
In the reveal. God damn it. Long road.
Yeah.
When we get there, and I checked the time because I was like, this seemed fast. I mean, I know this was less than a 90-minute movie, but we still have like 25 minutes left. What is the rest of this movie going to be? And I was actually kind of bummed for a second, but then I saw the dinner bit. And that's actually probably the creepiest thing to me out of this whole movie. And actually, I could have done with even more, because that thing, that kind of masochistic thing we talk about, like, you know, watching scary movies because they scare us. I would have loved to have seen the dinner scene go on. Like, I could have watched 10 minutes of that, just because I was fascinated and because I was unsettled. And I was like, no, this is working more. Just have him keep talking. I want to know. That's the only thing I'm more curious about, is just like, what's the rest of this meal? Like, it's a whole meal. I could watch the whole meal. That's the only thing I'm curious about.
Structurally, Eddie, it's also, I think, the only time that we see him operating not around one of our leads. We just get to see him doing his own thing. Which you'd think, following, you know, Molly or even like Becky and Jerry's points of view, so your only exposure to him is through them.
Yeah.
Makes sense from writing, from scares. But to just give us a scene where he acts that way when you're not around.
And even worse, like, watching again. I mean, I know I just said I don't want to see any more of his day, but there's something about that. There is something kind of oddly magnetic about, like, just watching him create a voice to talk to. And it's kind of like a nightmare, because I don't want to know what a man is going to create for himself, like, in a world, like, you know, where everybody, you know, they can be as nice to him as he wants them to be. They'll be whoever he needs them to be. It's nightmarish, but I think because it works for the movie, and it kind of delivers the creepiest thing about this movie for me, the isolation and the mental illness side of it, I guess.
There's something similar to it. We get a little hint of it also when Becky and Jerry have left the basement and they're going down the hall, and they have to pass by the open door where he is dressed up as Davy, as his brother, and he's playing. He's sitting on the floor playing with like his grandparents or his parents, you know. And again, that's not for anyone, that's for him. And I like to imagine that is alone what his days, part of what his days entail, is a little brother playing toys with, you know, in the living room with the parents. But that is far less disturbing than the mechanics of, well, here's the Eileen mannequin. Time to eat. But now I'm gonna make her act like she doesn't want to eat. Unless is she somewhat lucid and alive in there and she doesn't want to eat? In which case, now I'm gonna connect and make her eat.
Right.
But also, so she's a mannequin. Why would you want to create the scenario she won't eat? Well, I forgot to wear the mask. Well, let me put on this little half mask. What's the psychology that would make her respond to you like, oh, I forgot that I'm not playing my brother right now? There's too much to unpack, and because of that, I don't like it. It bothers me when I can't understand what the fuck's going on in your head. But the fact that the music is so hippity dippity.
Yes.
And
the music comes back with that. Boop,
and I'm gonna and I'm gonna animate my little playtime dinner, and you want her to eat, but now I need to do the fake fuck all of it. And fuck that music.
Yeah, and it again, also because it's not played with the intention, like, I mean, again, we've talked about this with kind of like the reboot era and the remakes of the early 2000s and stuff. Of, you know, like this thing, it's just kind of like, look how scary what we're doing is, look how much we're, you know, it's so intense, look how you're scared, you're so scared. And it's like, no, I'm not.
Oh, I can imagine the Platinum Dunes remake of this
right,
brown and the whole room is wet. You know.
Yeah. They would just completely miss the point about like what made it scary in the first place is
Yep.
the things that make it unconventional and the things that aren't played to scare you, but to, you know, like in that voice, that very, you know, just like, yeah, you're watching a horror movie, kind of thing, as opposed to just kind of like, no, he's just alone. And it's like, well, again, maybe just a young angle too, because it's almost like he's playing at having dinner or like a tea party or
Right.
something
It's
like
like
that.
playtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has a new toy. He has a new mannequin. He has a new person.
Yeah. And then the angle of just the voice, yeah, and the movement and the whatever, like it's in an odd way, like in a broad universe of this movie way, one of the things that's troubling and that's kind of tragic about it to me, it's the same thing that would be troubling and tragic to me about any kind of like isolated person who uses their isolation as a strength to commit atrocities, and, you know, uses their power over people in the remoteness and in, you know, like, I know this place better than you do, and I've done this before, and you don't know what I have waiting for you, so I'm going to abuse that power. But the thing that makes me really the saddest about it is he's got superpowers, you know, a kind of undefined blurred line, you know, like superpowers, who knows how vast the expanse, but he's using them to create a friend and play at having dinner with them. There's something so sad and sick about that to me. I don't like that. I don't like thinking about it. Yet at that point in the movie, I thought, well, movie's over. We've got the reveal. What are you going to show me next? And then they show me that, and it's like, I'm in.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Oh shit. Okay, you answered my question, movie.
Yeah,
here I am.
Because it's not just this telekinesis and the mannequins. You really start to, in the third act, really pull the layers a little bit back on a tale of madness and loneliness. In fact, that's one of the things also that I like about the movie is that there aren't many. It's very unfamiliar in that, or common, right? So like, let's say you start up any slasher movie, you immediately go, okay, well, I know what this is, because I've seen these. Like, there's a man, and he's gonna have a mask, and he's gonna have a motive. There might be a twist at the third act. And you start to watch a ghost movie, and you go, okay, well, there's gonna be a haunting. There's probably gonna be a twist reveal, and I know what this is. But this is like, well, there's a man, and he's a telekinetic, and he's alone, and he's a little mad. So mannequins, like, what the fuck do I have to compare this to? Like, I don't have a good point of reference. There aren't many like this.
No. And
that
yet,
sad, lonely mannequin movie, you know.
I really like the title, because it's one thing. Because when you hear it, you're just kind of like, tourist trap, all right, and then you watch it, and it's just that, it's just a tourist trap. And then I think somewhere about maybe like halfway through the movie, I'm just kind of like, tourist trap. Oh, because they're tourists and they get trapped. But everybody knows what a tourist trap is.
Tourist trap, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I like it, and I like the fact that you don't really understand the mask of the face. It's another one of those things where I saw the poster or I saw the emblem, you know, on Tubi that was advertising the movie, and before I clicked on it, and I didn't know what it meant. I was just kind of like, oh, it's like a mask of some kind. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I watched the movie, and after it's over, I never look at that mask the same way. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want to. I'd rather not look at it. Thank you. I'm creeped out.
I think it's that first scene with Eileen when she goes into the room.
Yeah.
And the mannequins start moving, and the neckerchief.
Yeah.
I forget if he's dressed as Woody or not. I think he is. He's got like the blonde wig and the little Gilligan hat. But there's so many where we get the close up of the mask mouth, but then also his mouth. And what's fucked up is that, like, I always thought like his tongue was poking out, but it's not his tongue. The mask has its own set of teeth.
Yes.
And then it's his lip that looks like a tongue, but then you see his teeth, so it's like lip, teeth. It's just fuck all of it.
Yeah. It's hard to look at. It's because it's hard to look at because it's kind of creepy and scary, but it's also hard to look at because your mind can't kind of make sense out of what you're looking at. Like, wait, I did the same thing where I had to like shake my head and be like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. And I had to really lean in close and just be kind of like, oh, okay, the mask is, but because something in my mind needed to know where are the real teeth and where are the mannequin teeth. I just need to figure that out. It's all, maybe it's like that, like Wes Craven choosing Freddy Krueger's, sweater to be like that shade of red and that shade of green because they're, hard on the eye. So it's literally hard to look at. So it's one more, aspect of the thing that kind of worked for me with this face behind the mask where you can't tell what's going on. And it's beyond Texas Chainsaw Massacre because, it's not even beyond, but it's separate because that Texas Chainsaw, we've talked about the layering of like the leather face with the real face underneath, but I can clearly see where one thing begins and where the other ends. So it's creepy for a whole other reason. This is creepy for a whole other reason. Yeah, and I like the fact that my eye can't quite make sense out of it. And the only other thing I have is when the dummy, when Becky is like finally, getting like a kind of assaulted by all the dummies and everything in her death scene. There's one dummy at the end of it all who tips his hat, and there's this grind sound. It reminds me of the camera grind from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just kind of like a kind of thing. Not exactly, but it was enough where I was just kind of like, huh. And there's been so much other stuff that's parallel Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe that's just one more thing. He was just kind of like, let's do our own camera grind. Kind of, I think it was supposed to be the gears maybe in him, in the thing that tips its hat, but after they all shoot him or whatever. But but it was a similar, I was just kind of like, okay, one more thing that I can like kind of like draw a connection to. And
because those are the only ones that make the noise because they're supposed to be like in theory operating in the daytime under the actual tourist trap and it makes you wonder though, like how much he's flipping the switches for them, but like are the switches even plugged into anything?
Maybe it's all part of the game. Maybe he likes pretending they're all different types of mannequins, maybe. Or,
they can operate, but then he can move them with his mind at night.
Maybe.
If he needs to.
That also, makes as much
speaking
sense.
of things being plugged in, it's the good old, you watch the spooky thing on the TV and then you go behind the TV and it wasn't plugged in. When he says, she's like, hey, can we use your phone? He's like, yeah, sure. First of all, dick move. I hate when people do this. Can I use your phone? Oh, yeah, sure. Doesn't work. Just say fucking no. God damn it. Smart ass motherfucker. But we know the phone doesn't work. And then later when Molly's alone in there, the phone rings and I'm like, And then, answers there's no one there. But she does the thing where she reaches for the cord and the cord's broken. Like I already got enough going on in this movie that you're doing this the old cord phone trick, but it's just again telekinetically he can make a phone ring too. There's too much magic. There's so much just nebulous out there. And it's also extra creepy. It's extra creepy. The phone rings, and then the wife's light for the wife mannequin turns on. Like at that point, between the wife's light turning on, like Cyril and the fucking elevator, like I mean, at this point I'm on foot and I'm running, and I'm sorry, friends. I don't know if I'd leave my friends behind, but I gotta get the fuck out of, I don't know. There's too much.
You could always do an American Werewolf in London moment where you start to run and then, just remember my friend and go back.
Well, it's not American Werewolf. I'm thinking there was another, we even discussed a movie. I forget what movie it was, where there's a girl and she could leave, but she turns around and goes back into the house.
Oh, there's a few. There was one. And we talked about how like,
some people would say, get the fuck out, why are you going back? But the argument that we had is like, no, she cares about her friends and she's gonna.
Did it happen I remember you admired what's her name in Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning.
It was before that. This was
there was another one even more.
But one of those.
Because I remember talking to wait. Olivia Hussey, Black Christmas.
Oh, Black Christmas. She goes back in for her friend.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do.
Yes. It's one of the only examples of it where I'm not like, that dumb bitch. I'm like, you're such a good person. I love you. Let me say this.
When I watch Black Christmas, I would do what she's doing.
Yeah.
In Tourist Trap, when that fucking mannequin light turns on after the phone that's not plugged in rings, I'm getting the fuck out of there. Just getting the fuck out.
I think I'm forever ruined by Jeepers Creepers, which has subsequently been forever ruined for me. But back when I liked the movie before I knew anything about what's his name, Silva, I remember when they talk about like seeing the body, Justin Long and his sister, about the body being thrown down the pipe and she just wants to go. And he's like, okay, what if it was you? And I'm like, fuck. Because that would make me go back too. I'd be like, and now I always think that. I was like, what if it was me? I mean, and I shouldn't, there are people, like, if it were you, I wouldn't have to be like, well, what if it was me?
Right.
You know, I would just be like, oh shit, John Carlos. I'll go, I got to grab a weapon of some sort and go in there swinging, you know, and who knows, maybe I'll die too, but you know, at least I'll die a Viking death. I'll die fighting. That's what I want.
Go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah. Brought to you by Ice Cold
or well-intended, yeah. I guess I don't really have like a final statement, but the last thing that really just kind of, we already touched upon it vaguely, but not only do we have the three mannequins, but even under the mannequins, we have mannequins with a cut mouth. Yeah. We have mannequins whose eyes move.
Yeah.
Then there's also the mannequin bodies with the weird evil heads. But then, like at one point, one of them, their eyes light up.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
What the fuck are their eyes? Fuck you. Fuck you, movie. I don't want. That's demonic shit. I don't know what that is. I don't like it. And then you find out, and the worst part of all is they can sing. And that's because earlier, I think it was, it's Eileen who goes into the room and you don't see their mouths move, but I think maybe they shake, but they definitely cut to them while you hear what I thought was the score. And I'm like, oh, that's creepy because you're cutting to these mannequins during female vocals, and that's just creepy. But I thought that was a choice that the film was making. But then later in the movie, in the attic, they have full-blown jaws drop and go, oh, and then like, oh, and she's looking at them as they do it. And I don't know if you noticed, Eddie, but mannequins don't have vocal cords. So like, what the fuck is going on?
It's another thing where I was just
that's like, not there's so much in this movie that isn't telekinesis. It's more than telekinesis.
But that was another thing where I was just like, they're just like mannequins dropping their jaws at you and go, oh, and everything. It's like,
fuck that.
And then they start one by one falling on her, and I'm like, push it off, get out of there.
Well, you can push that off, but it's still, why are they? How can they sing? It's creepy. It's creepy. Also, it's creepy when they're not just when they're shaking, but like it's in the attic. It's like 2 or 3 different shots. It'll just be like a group shot, and like one's just like a person. And at one point, there's just like a dude, and the dude's just like, I'm like, blah. Yeah. It's fuck this fucking movie. That's all I think. Say. I really, really like it. But I fucking hate it.
I know you do.
But I really like it.
I think the thing about like all of that and why is a lot of the scares, like I'd say about half of the scares in this movie, even if they manage to unsettle me in person, like, you know, mannequins singing at me and shit like that, I think I'd just get so angry. I'd just be so infuriated that I just like fight back. I would just be like, shut the fuck up. No, I mean, I'd like, stop victimizing me. Stop trying to put me in a fucking hole. I wouldn't feel immobilized. But that said, the thing that I do appreciate, because as with the story I told about being in the gentleman's apartment and everything with the mannequin there, and every time I'm like, oh, excuse me. I appreciate in this movie the fact it doesn't feel like a failing at all. It actually works really well. How often I know something is supposed to be a mannequin, standing even maybe among other mannequins, but there's like 1 or 2 people dressed up as mannequins in the environment, And you can see them moving the way people do when they're trying to hold still, but not trying, not trying terribly hard, but like, there's still kind of some, or so, like something to it where you're just kind of like, that's moving. That's a person. I love that I can identify that, but I love that, again, with the blurred line and everything that this movie offers as far as like, what is reality? What is, how much can you trust your eyes and all of, whatever. It's one more thing that I'm just kind of like, it's a presence in the room. That's all that matters. The threat is there and it's effective. That's another thing in addition to like the dinner scene, and just the voice overall, that I find, that's my top three creepy factors of this movie, I guess. So I just wanted to share that.
I do want to come back around to one thing that you had suggested.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I'm not shaming anyone who does makeup, I'm not going that way. But when you had suggested the idea that, what if him playing with mannequins and playing with little dolls, some sort of, he's not a man because he's playing with dolls. If anything, I think the movie, they only touch upon it briefly, but the implication that, well, he does makeup to his masks. He does makeup. That's not normal. He sits down and he puts on, like, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but that if anything to me leans into the he's not a man's man. Therefore, is the fact that he puts on makeup and long wigs, like, I think that sort of trying to make him effeminate as some sort of negative, as some sort of shaming of the other, could be read into more so than playing with dolls as a criticism.
I guess maybe
not my criticism, mind you.
Of course.
You know what, dude? You want to put on some fucking rouge? You want to look pretty for your dinner date? Go fucking do it, man. Go nuts.
That's why that for me, like, maybe that never struck with me. Also because, like, I mean, if we're talking about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously the fact that they're dead faces, it being treated like as if it were your own face. Like, there are concepts that are far more disturbing that I'm beholding, in that deleted scene where he's holding faces and comparing which one shall I wear for dinner, and then just really messily just powders it up and everything like that. There is so much to be afraid of in that scene that kind of like, the makeup aspect is the last thing that occurs to me, but it's because it unsettles me. This movie, because I am a little bit more on the outside, I spend more of the running time on the outside of things with this movie. My mind is free to kind of like wander and question and be like, oh, what's really creeping me out about this? When you have that air of detachment and you can be a little bit more analytical in real time with a movie that isn't just like chilling you to your core. And that's just not that movie for me, where I'm not chilled to my core. I'm just like, this is fun. I should show this to someone.
I mean, it definitely is fun, but it gets under my skin. I'm never like fully terrified, but it gets under my skin in a way that, like, I don't even know if they were 100% going for the sense of a dreamlike state to some of these.
I don't know.
But I mean, there are other there's plenty of David Lynch stories that people will say, oh, it's very dreamlike sort of thing. We're talking about watching Phantasm movies soon.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. But this movie, to me, while those movies maybe have tried that approach, this one actually like affects me because of that approach. It's not simply just a cool part of the story or a tool, but it actually gets under my skin because of its dreamlike state.
Fair.
Yeah. I do want to point out for anyone out there who's thinking about buying this. This is just a little PSA. There was originally a Tourist Trap Blu-ray.
Okay.
That was sourced from an imperfect print that was like missing 2 minutes. So for a long time, Tourist Trap was 88 minutes. And then they recently released what's called Tourist Trap Uncut. It's not like some like extended cut. It's just Tourist Trap, as it was supposed. It's the 90-minute true original cut, but to separate it from the previous release that said Tourist Trap on it. They released this last year in like a big fancy packaging that looked like a VHS box. It came with an action figure of Mr. Slauson, and inside that packaging was this. And then a few months later, they've just released this for cheaper. But if you're interested in buying this movie, be sure to get Tourist Trap Uncut and not Tourist Trap.
Okay.
FYI. Wasn't cut for any like special censorship. It was just like some fucked up version that was just missing some stuff.
Only the best.
Only the best. Yeah. So I don't have anything else to say. I just gotta go to bed and hope there's not a mannequin in there.
Can you do a little Davey muttering to himself impression to sign us out?
Yes, I can. But by the way, that's one of the other creepy things you see. It happens like twice in the movie. Right after Woody gets killed, the camera, and then at some other point, the camera will just stay kind of in the room, and you're like, you can't even. I was talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, who are you talking to? Are you talking to yourself? But also, what do you say? But like, what are you recounting? Like, what the fuck? The creepy little muttering to himself.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
He said little brother at one point. He's just kind of like, little brother. I don't know what he was saying.
Eddie, why don't you like me?
Am I pretty?
Eddie, you're so beautiful. Doesn't like it when I do my little trick. Tell me you love me. I'm venturing into Sling Blade territory.
I was just gonna say French fried potatoes and mustard.
You shouldn't have done that. He's just a boy. Because to me, he ventures. I mean, I went full Sling Blade on you. I'm sorry, you're turning red.
Yes, you did. But it's in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, I now know for the podcast to never go full Sling Blade. No, it made me think of, and this is a gross reference, and I'm sorry, but it made me think of Little Children with with who? What's his name? From he played the rebooted Freddy Krueger, and he was in Watchmen and Bad News Bears.
You're asking me to remember a name after I forgot Cheryl Ladd.
But anyway, when he's in the car jacking it, and he's like, "You better not tell anybody." Like, oh god, there's that little like,
Jesus. Hey, actually, on a similar note, that's one of the things of the pervy things, because it made me think about another perv who we never see but we hear in fucking Human Centipede 2, when we hear the protagonist's father's voiceover. I'm not going to say the line, but there's a line that he says about tears. If you've seen the movie, you should remember what I'm saying.
I don't remember.
But I'm not
I've
saying it. I'm not saying it.
Now I know what I'm watching tonight.
No! Ew, gross. Oh my God, if ever there was just like it's not even, that's the thing. It's like, one thing I'm grateful for with Tourist Trap is that there's enough there to make me recoil. There's enough there to make me wonder, should I recoil? And then there's enough there, and why? And but it's ultimately like I leave with a kind of like fun spirit. One thing about Human Centipede 2 and movies of that ilk is that I mean, there's not really that many either. Even torture porn isn't. Human Centipede 2 is a whole other level, where I literally feel like I'm being bludgeoned for the runtime of the movie with like things that are supposed to shock me. So by the time I reach finally the Human Centipede part of the Human Centipede 2, I'm so benumbed. I've seen so many horrible things, so many horrible acts, so many and whatnot, and it's scenarios that I'm even like imagining in my head that the movie is encouraging me. Yes, imagine that. So by the time I see the thing that I came to see, there's no effect. I'm dead inside. I'm just numb. and I'm just waiting for it to be over now. That's how I saw Human Centipede 2. It was like, oh, there's a Human Centipede finally. How much longer do I have to sit here and watch this? And nothing shocked me for the rest of the movie. I was just like, baby. Oh, well, that's new.
Well, and I forget if you saw, because I saw Human Centipede 2. I didn't get to go see it in the theater, but I did see it on demand when it was made, you know, kind of like in the pandemic. Like it was a theatrical release and an on-demand release.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the theatrical and on-demand release was like the edited version. So like on Blu-ray, it was like the full cut.
Yeah.
And the full cut definitely has, because I remember reading about like at the festival, you know, like he takes the barbed wire and he wraps it in the sandpaper.
Yeah.
And I remember watching going, there's no barbed wire, what the fuck? And then I bought the Blu-ray. I'm like, oh my God, there it is. Okay. So I don't know which version you saw, but there is more.
I saw the barbed wire.
Okay, just making sure.
Now, but like I said, by the time I got to that, I was just like, oh, I mean,
what you're describing,
I mean, yeah.
What you're describing that was me during the third one.
Oh God, the third one from the beginning, I was just like, oh no.
Like, I mean, I know this isn't a Human Centipede podcast. I like the first one. I really like the second one. I do not care for the third. But again, when you get to the centipede or the third one, it's so long. There's so many. I'm just like, yeah, it's a lot of people. And
it's also, I mean, talk about implausible. Beyond implausibility. I'm just like, this isn't even a movie at this point. Like at least the other two. I'm not a fan of the second one, like I said, because I'm just pummeled. But the first one is what it is. I'm not a fan, but it's fine. I've seen it twice, and I don't even know why I saw it the second time. But
that's fun. I own 1 and 2. I think they're a great time.
I don't think it's fun, but it's fine. But it gets the job done. Like if you want to go see a movie called The Human Centipede, what else were you expecting? But the second one, I'm not going to see again, and the third one, I'm definitely never going to see. I mean, even as it was, I did not have to get like deep into the runtime of that movie to know that this it's not just a mistake watching this movie. It was a mistake making it in the first place. Like Tom Six has lost his way. Sorry, folks.
I just felt bad because I saw 1, like I rented it. I saw 2 on demand, but 3 I got to go see in a theater, and it's something I hate more than like when you pay your fucking ticket price and you're just like, when you see it with someone and you're like, are we wasting? Like I'm wasting. I mean, they wanted to see it too, but still, like it was just not. Nothing gave me anything like the joy of, I forget that little fellow's name in 2, but when he wants them to poo and they're not pooing into each other's mouths, and again he doesn't talk, so he just goes up and he shakes their little belly. He's like, why aren't you pooing? When he makes this little face, I really enjoy too. He just wants to see them poo.
And yet, Tourist Trap bothers you.
Nothing in Human Centipede 2 bothers me. But the little mouths dropping on, fuck that, fuck it.
Right, mannequins with eyes shifting and turning their heads and singing at you. That would fuck you up.
Fuck it with barbed wire wrapped around my dick. Like, fuck it. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Movies we're talking about can be found. See the segue from the barbed wire on the dick into the outro? You can find us on Facebook. With your mouth. Just no, fuck you. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook as Movies We're Talking About, and that's it. Thank you for joining me, Eddie. Thank you for listening to me talk about barbed wire on the dick. I don't know.